Do you have any fears or insecurities? I have lots of them, actually. I am a full-time pastor. I've been married to my beloved for 25 years. I have two awesome children. I've been a full-time pastor for 26 years altogether. I have been the pastor of my current church for 18 of those years, and yet I still struggle with fears and insecurities. For example, I have what they call medical anxiety. I get so nervous before I go into the doctor. I prefer skipping my annual wellness checkup. I have a really hard time getting the results of my lab work every year. And I haven't had any really terrible condition to make me like this. But it all began about 10 years ago when my daughters were growing up and we were watching Grey's Anatomy together. And during that time, I was really starting to really enjoy being a father. My children were leaving the infant stage. They were leaving the toddler stage. When they were 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14 years old, that's when I really began to get to know my kids and really enjoy being their dad. And there was something about that all of a sudden I became terrified of having a medical problem. I used to be able to drink Mountain Dew like it was water. And I never cared about developing any kind of chronic condition. I never cared. Suddenly I couldn't drink soda anymore. I was watching all that I ate. I became picky. And it's good to be healthy in your eating and cut out sodas. But my concern became overly exaggerated and excessive to the point where I developed medical anxiety. I couldn't watch Grey's Anatomy episodes because I would watch some seemingly normal character all of a sudden be diagnosed with something terrifying. And I would then worry that I had I had what I saw in that episode. And I began Googling my symptoms all the time. I was so worried that this sensation of tightness around my calves was deep vein thrombosis. I went into a vein center on 2 different years and had them do an ultrasound on my legs because I was terrified that I had a blockage somewhere in my veins in my legs. I drove my wife crazy asking for reassurance. But then she began to experience the same thing when she entered menopause. When my wife entered menopause, which you may be familiar with, then she got medical anxiety. Then she was watching YouTube videos about health and Googling her symptoms, still does. And then she began to look to me and our grown kids for reassurance. And that's just one of my fears. If I'm around somebody, like conversing, and I'm physically with somebody, and I feel like they act less enthusiastic, less happy to be with me, I begin to wonder if they don't like me anymore. I begin to wonder if they don't like me that much. Isn't that weird? Do you ever have that? the sensation of being around somebody and your friends, you enjoy being around them, or maybe a coworker, and for a long time it feels like that person likes being around you and you like being around that person. And then you get around them and something is off. It's like a radio dial not turned on the right knob back in the old radios. Something just feels not quite right. Something feels off, you know. And maybe that person just had a bad morning or a bad day. But I take it personal. I worry that person no longer likes me. Do you ever have that? Do you ever struggle with insecurities? Do you ever struggle with worries, fears? Years ago, I became obsessively worried about being able to afford my kids' college education and tuition. It all worked out better than expected. I worried for nothing. I've worried about my kids' health, even though they're doing well. And I think it's indicative of our society right now, because when I grew up, there was little talk at all of diseases, illnesses. TV commercials were all about toilet paper and restaurants, you know, McDonald's, Burger King, and don't squeeze the Charmin, and buying clothing and this and that, and car repair commercials. And nowadays you can't get through a movie or TV show on these streaming services or dish cable TV stations without being bombarded by medical commercials. Have you noticed that? Medical and pharmaceutical commercials. I'm like, I'm not gonna buy or look into that kind of medication unless my doctor brings it up. How many times do we have to see commercials about medications and pharmaceutical drugs and this condition, that condition? I think the reality of medical commercials, medication, pharmaceutical commercials, and also 24/7 headline news, and the fact that the worst situations are splashed out there on the internet as clickbait. I mean, they want to give you some headline in some website article that sounds so terrifying that you're curious and you click. It's clickbait, as you know. And I just think that 24/7, 24-hour news, and the awareness that we all have now of all these different medical conditions and all these medical websites that are designed to create anxiety, in my opinion. You Google your symptoms and you'll think that you're dying. You'll think that you have some terrible condition. So don't Google your symptoms. Went to Walmart and put my arm in the blood pressure machine, and the blood pressure machine had me convinced I had hypertension. The machine had me convinced that I had high blood pressure. I called my doctor that day, that moment, and surprised by getting an appointment that afternoon. That hardly ever happens. I got in there, they took my blood pressure, It was good. And he reassured me. And I was reassured. I was like, I worried over nothing. I told my wife that. So these are the kind of things that I worry about a lot. I worry about things. I worry if somebody does not like me anymore or likes me less. I worry about the future sometimes. I worry about my kids, even though they're great. And I prayed a lot asking God to remove my fears, and he has to a certain degree. I like the psalm that says, I sought the Lord and he answered me and he relieved me of all my fears. And I think he has, but all the fears that I'm talking about in this video are fears that I hold on to. I keep taking them back, and I don't need to. And if you feel like you can't get rid of certain fears, you're not alone. If you feel like you mentally hold on to anxieties, it's not just you. As a pastor of 26 years, as somebody who's been married to the same wife for 25 years, I still have all this. God has relieved me of all of my fears on numerous occasions, but I keep taking them back. I keep holding on to them. That's my habit. It's a hard habit to break. And the Apostle Paul described a thorn in his flesh in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. He described a thorn in his flesh from verses 1 through 10. And we're not sure what his thorn in the flesh was. It may have been a physical problem, a medical problem. It may have been his eyesight. It may have been a leg problem. It may have been a temptation. He kept falling into temptation. In Romans 7, he describes his struggles with sin. I think he struggled with sexual immorality a whole lot. And the fact that he had that struggle, I think, bothered him. And that may have been the thing that he was trying to pray away. That may have been his mysterious thorn in the flesh that he described in 2 Corinthians 12. But he said in that chapter, 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But that didn't happen. That did not happen. Verse 9, but God said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect or seen as perfect in weakness. So I'm being very honest with you in this video and sharing with you my weakness, my mental weakness. But God's power is made perfect in human weakness. Things are happening in my ministry, in my church, including growth and new ministries and sometimes miracles despite me, not because of me. It's all God and not me. When you see my successes that I talk about on my channel, and you hear me in this video tell you honestly about my weaknesses, my anxieties, my insecurities, you know it's God and not me. So I want you to know that God's grace is sufficient for you. If you have an anxiety problem, if you are easily triggered, if you struggle with insecurities, and you've prayed and prayed and prayed, and they haven't gone away, God's grace is sufficient for you. Sometimes God allows our flawed humanity to remain, our humanness, our brokenness, so that God can be seen through us. In Judges chapters 6 and 7, Gideon felt insecure, inadequate. God called him mighty warrior. God told Gideon, go in the strength that you have. You have it. And liberate Israel from the Midianites, their enemies. He's like, me? No, I can't do this. What do you mean? No, I don't think so. How can I do it? I am least in my family, he said. And God said, I will be with you, and you will strike down the Midianites. And then God shrunk Gideon's army from over 30,000 soldiers to only 300. Why? Because all that did was make Gideon more nervous and anxious. Maybe you have experiences that make you more nervous, more anxious. God, I only have this little bit. What do you mean you're shrinking my army? I had this much, now I have this much. Sometimes we feel small in more than one way. Seeing too little in our bank account, our savings account. Seeing too little in our fridge. Seeing too few in your church. Look, my church is not a large church in comparison to other churches. You know what? We are the only church in my area that has a food pantry. Only one. And there are at least 2 churches near my church that are at least twice the size of my congregation. That's so that God can be seen and that God gets the glory and not me and not the size of my church family. God values quality over quantity. So God's grace is sufficient for you. If anything that I have said in this video has rung any bells in your mind, if you have similar anxieties, fears, worries, insecurities, you're not alone. You're not alone. It's okay if you can't get the monkey off your back. You're okay. You're okay in God's book. People say, you're okay in my book. That's a good saying. Well, God actually has a book. Not just the Bible, but the Lamb's Book of Life. If you're a believer, you're a child of God. You are a son or daughter of God. And your name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life, written in blood. And you know whose blood. And it will never be erased. Your name will never be erased. That means you're secure in Christ. You're secure in God's love. And if you allow yourself to begin to feel secure in God, then you can begin to feel secure with yourself and all of your flawed humanity. You might be a beautiful disaster, but you're still beautiful. Your life is beautiful, even if you struggle with anxieties and worries and fears. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please smash the like button. God bless. Go in peace. Keep the faith and love your life.